Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon for our K-12 webinar on the essentials of environmental monitoring for school nutrition. A couple of things before we get started. We have saved a few minutes at the end for questions. So as we are going along, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we will take a look at them. We'll try to get to as many as we can. The session is being recorded, so we will send that recording to you via email after the fact. We have muted microphones just to keep things focused. But again, feel free to drop any notes that you have in the chat and we'll get to those. But thank you again for spending your time with us. I'm excited to introduce Joe Mundell, our president and CRO at Sonicu. So Joe, I will let you take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Bailey. And yeah, thank everyone for joining. I know how busy school nutrition teams are. So, our goal today is to just give you a bit of an overview about how to prevent food loss, reduce some workload, simplify compliance without adding work. So, what I'd like to start off by just kind of a quick gut check. If anyone, just kind of mentally raise your hand, I guess, has ever come in on a Monday and something went wrong over the weekend. That is kind of the point that we're trying to help with. And we've heard that story many times, right? So the problem, right, we see these same problems with pretty much everyone we talk to. And everybody's dealing with kind of the same things. Cost of food is going up, there's less staff, aging equipment, and compliance doesn't tend to go down, it only tends to go up, right? And so as you think about those things, failure doesn't always come from bad intention. If you're doing manual logs, even with the best intentions, logging can be missed, it can be skipped. We've seen this over and over in our business over the years. People with the best intentions, things happen, things come up. And there's just more risk. There's more food, there's more risk. Equipment that's being used, it's not getting newer, right? Budgets are usually tightening. And, the biggest thing really to kind of emphasize here, these issues that can happen in a commercial kitchen, they tend not to always just happen during the day when you're staffed, right? They tend to happen when no one's there, which is why I asked the question, if you come in on a Monday, right, and a freezer has gone down or a cooler's gone down, things happen over holiday breaks, over Christmas break, nights and weekends, and that tends to be what we hear over and over and over again, right? So what does it actually lead to? Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, obviously, food safety is kind of at the core of that. But as you look at the numbers, kind of put some numbers to it, right? We've got some stats from average schools, 500 meals a day, $4,000 in food, at risk. Maybe you've got multiple weeks of food, or you're a larger school system. You could easily have $8,000 to $10,000 of food sitting in a walk-in cooler. Right. And, things happen. Doors get left open. Equipment fails. Sometimes it fails slowly and power goes out. Right. And it's not just the cost of the food. Although it's a big part of it, but it's obviously the compliance piece of that, or the worst case scenario is, potential for illness or risk, which none of us want. It's rare, it's not something that we want our name associated with, right? But it can be, inevitable to have these failures without visibility, right? And so the issue really is not, at least from our perspective and what we've seen, the issue certainly is not intent. The issue is not effort. The issue is normally the process or the system, right? And so as we think about kind of the essentials of environmental monitoring, and we think about how do we fix these problems in an easy, cost-effective way that doesn't add work to an already busy team, we have to be able to accomplish a couple of different things, right? So the very first thing that we have to be able to do is we have to automate the record keeping, right? Paper logs, they fail. They don't fail because of people all the time. They fail because of time. There are always things that get in the way. When you automate the record keeping, when you automate the tracking, nothing gets missed, nothing gets pencil whipped, everything is always recorded, right? So I kind of think about this, monitoring, it doesn't stop when your staff leaves. When the staff leaves for extended periods of times, whether it's a weekend or a holiday break, the monitoring system is still working for you in the background, right? And the second piece is you need real-time visibility, right? So what does that mean, right? It's like, okay, it's not that great to find out an issue after the fact. You need to see it in real time. You need to catch this problem as it happens. And so you need to have the ability for alerts to go out in a way that works for your workflow. They need to go out immediately so that someone can act. Preferably, you have a system like Sonicu's where alerts can go out via text or email or phone call. And if someone doesn't respond, it can go to another group of people, same way, either text, email, phone call, etc., through an escalation path. Again, this is a difference between reacting and prevention, right? We are trying to give you a tool to help you prevent loss. And the third thing that you need kind of in the essential toolkit is automatic reporting, right? So we talked about automated data logging. That's different. You can get a data logger that can automatically log, the temperature inside of a walk-in cooler. What you want is automatic reporting, right? And so by that, this is aggregated reports, whether they're weekly or monthly. These are reports that can automatically be emailed into people's email, or you can pull them on demand, but also have a reporting stack that helps you with trends. Reports that can show you equipment that's potentially failing or can point out recurring issues, right? And so when you're running a busy operation and you're running a busy school cafeteria, school kitchen operation, there's a lot of firefighting, I'm sure, that goes on day to day. We want you to be able to stop firefighting around this and start managing, okay? And that's the tools that we try to put in our customers' hands, right? So just kind of go back to those 3 points. You have to kind of automate the logging. You need to have real-time visibility to conditions and alarming to get notified so you can be more preventative. And you need reports that help you kind of manage the business. And those are kind of at the core of what Sonicu does, not just for our school customers, but for all of our customers, whether they're in healthcare or in food distribution or pharmacy distribution, where they rely on those tools to help them manage their business. Okay, so slide to the next slide here. And really talk about outcomes, right? So what changes when you implement a system like Sonicu, right? Well, first of all, we're going to help you eliminate food waste, which no one wants. We're going to help you eliminate manual clipboards and less paperwork. We're going to automate the reporting for you. There are going to be fewer surprises, right? If you have some type of health department HACCP inspection, it's like, well, where's the logs for this? And you thought you had them and you don't. You're going to eliminate that because you're a click or two away from providing that data. And so I think the concept is Sonicu is working to remove problems, not to add work. That's always what our goal is. We want an easy system that's easy to implement, that automates manual process, that alerts people when they need it. And the whole goal is a system that is removing problems and removing work, not adding to an already busy workload that I'm sure all of you guys have. Okay, so a little bit about the platform. Sonicu has small wireless sensors that can go inside of walk-in coolers and freezers. They talk wirelessly to a centrally located hub that's in your kitchen. The hub has a cell modem, or it can be connected via Ethernet. We have a wireless door contact closures as well. Some schools like to have these on the doors. So, it's obviously a much different alarm. If you get a temperature alarm and the temperature alarm is caused by the door being open, than it is to get a temperature alarm and the door shut. One of those is easy to solve, shut the door. The other, you might need to call your refrigeration company, or take more preventative action. It automates the logging. These devices transmit their data on a routine 15-minute interval, or whatever interval you select. It builds these logs, it builds the reports. These are the kind of reports that auditors are used to looking at, that your health department is used to looking at. Puts them in your inbox. If you subscribe, they will automatically go to you daily, weekly, monthly, etc. And then it allows you to get real-time notifications. We have a mobile app that you can log in. If you're bored on Sunday and you want to see what the temperature is in your walk-in cooler because you're not too sure about that cooler, you can log in and look at it. Hopefully you don't spend your whole Sunday doing that, but you have the ability to do that with Sonicu. So we put all those tools in your hand. We have some other products that some schools use. We have a food insertion sensor that can be on the product, that can be on the food line, that we've deployed at a few schools. So we have a handful of different sensors that are being used in the kitchens at our school customers today. And so let's just take a minute or two and talk about a couple of the schools that we're helping. And, the first example in Northville Schools that helped us publish this case study. This is, I don't know if it's small or maybe a smaller school system, 11 schools, 7,000 students. And, the big challenge really is what we talked about already. There's just no visibility after hours. The staff does a great job when they're there, but the staff's not there all day, 24/7. So, they had a couple of failures, and then finally they had one over the summer that kind of triggered them to look for a solution. They found Sonicu. Now, if there's a cooler that's out of range, they're getting a real-time alert. There's no more manual logging. They were doing some manual process there. And really, the big story is they get peace of mind. And, once Sonicu is installed, it just kind of runs in the background, right? It's like, okay, is there an alarm? And if something's not working on the Sonicu system, the system will also tell you, hey, something's not right. So like a battery's going low or whatever, right? Although these batteries last for 5+ years, at some point you have to replace batteries. So once it's installed, you've got peace of mind. The system's just running in the background. That's kind of the short answer here. And we have the same story with other schools. And I'm not going to go through all these case studies, but, again, we see the same 4 challenges. Lack of visibility, not a good notification system, too much manual paperwork, kind of over and over again, and aging equipment, right? And so that equipment is more prone for failure. Whether it's schools or even, we've got Boy Scouts of America, a great story with one of their camps. So same application that we use in historically, because Sonicu grew up in healthcare and life sciences, and the cold storage units inside of hospitals, inside of pharmaceutical applications. The same technology sits in what we put in our K through 12 schools. It's a very battle-tested platform that's used by the most regulatory-driven, strict customers that you can come up with, and it works beautifully for our K through 12 markets as well. So the last slide here, I think, and then we'll kind of get into get it back to Bailey and go through Q&A, is to really take away that most food loss is completely preventable if you know when it happens, right? And Sonicu has made it super easy to get started. Typically, our customers will buy the sensors and they'll pay for a subscription for the monitoring service. We have programs where you can roll the cost of those sensors into that monthly subscription model. anything that makes it easy for us to do, for you guys to do business with us, we try to be really easy to work with and to get started. And I know we've got HPS here as a great partner. A lot of our schools are part of the HPS GPO. Sonicu is on the HPS GPO, so we have some special discounting for HPS members. So that if you are an HPS member, take advantage of that. And yeah, I think that's the story. I'm happy to kind of turn it over here to Bailey.
Thanks, Joe. So we've got about 10 minutes left to dive into questions, maybe a little bit more than that. But just a couple of quick reminders before we do. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is recorded, so we will be sending this out via email along with a food safety risk assessment that'll be included in there for you to access and download. You can see a preview here on the screen. This is the first in a series of webinars. So we've got a few more topics coming this year, including monitoring challenges for summer break, because we know that can be a bit of a challenge. There's a long period of time where you've got your coolers and refrigerators, freezers that you need to make sure that they're running well over summer. We have building smarter alert systems and the easy way to implement better systems. So a little bit more of a deeper dive in terms of what it's like to implement this. But those will be coming up and will be sent to your email, your inbox, should you want to attend those. So let's dive into some questions. We've got a few here. So I guess, Joe, one question is just kind of it looks like a practical question. What happens if a walk-in cooler or freezer goes out of range? What does that look like with Sonicu? How can schools respond quickly when that happens?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. So we have in the software there is a profile for a walk-in cooler. It's a standard profile, but you can customize it. So if the temperature goes out of range, we usually have a buffer on there, so we're not alarming. The second it goes out of range, you can have a little buffer of time in case doors are open while you're loading and doing normal operations. But if it's out of range for a certain period of time, it hits our alarm handling system. As soon as it triggers that alarm handling system, it looks at what users are set up to get alarms. How are they going to get alarms? Would be either text, email, or phone call. And so it triggers whoever you have set up as users. And our customer success team helps our clients during setup go through and learn how to use those tools. So the alarm group will get that alarm, and you can build tiered escalation on top of that. So for example, if all the alarms go to Bailey, poor Bailey, she gets every alarm. Let's say Bailey is in the middle of doing something at the doctor's office with one of her kiddos, and she can't get to the phone. If she hasn't responded in a set period of time, and that can be configured by you, the customer, during setup, and you can change it at any time. Let's say she hasn't responded in 30 minutes, then it can escalate to someone else. When they get the alarm, again, via text, phone call, email, they simply can go to that unit, or they can put comments into the alarm to say, I'm going to go check on this, or I did check on this and the door was open, I shut the door. They have the ability to snooze that alarm. So let's say you loaded a bunch of product in. It's like, well, loaded a bunch of product, waiting for it to cool down. You can snooze the alarm. If it's still an alarm 2 hours later or an hour later, you can pick what the snooze period is. It'll re-alarm if it's still out of range. All of that activity is aggregated and collected on an excursion report, and it'll show you any out of range events that caused alarms, how long it was out of range, what any of those corrective actions are. It all gets aggregated into one report, and that report's very useful for you to look at, the food safety, or even from a compliance standpoint. Hopefully that answered your question.
I think that did. And I think it actually covered our other question that came in here about the alerting to staff and what that looks like. So we can move on to our next one, which is what is the easiest way for a school or a district to get started with continuous temperature monitoring? They don't have a system like this. What is their first step when considering it?
Yeah, I mean, what I always recommend anybody would do is talk to one of our monitoring specialists. They can show a quick demo of how this looks at other schools. They can show you, kind of visually what the hardware looks like. They can talk through how it's installed, what the options are, even though this installs really quickly. If they want to try to install it themselves, or if they want to talk to Sonicu installation as part of it. But the monitoring team can walk you through. They can give you pricing. They can answer questions. They can show you a demo. Anything related to that that could possibly, product pricing, the whole 9 yards. So I would just reach out to sales@sonicu.com, or go to our website and fill out a form, or call us. We've got a team of people that help schools all over the country.
Okay. So another question that's here is how customizable is the system for different types of kitchens or meal programs, and just making it fit their particular needs?
Yeah, I mean, the system itself, we'd have to talk through what exactly that means, but everything in the system is configurable. We have got defaults, so we try to make it really easy. There's profiles for alarms. There's profiles for points of monitoring and what the thresholds are. We know what the temperature is supposed to be inside of a walk-in cooler or walk-in freezer. So we have default settings that people can change. There's some things on the back end around naming conventions. If you're using like the probing sensor, there's some additional functionality around menus. One thing that really kind of separates Sonicu from a lot of companies in this space is we have a platform. And what I mean by that is we have a platform that can pull data, push data. Like if you have another cloud-based company that has an API, we can send data to their software. We can pull data in from their software. Those are just things you have to talk through with our monitoring team. But we have examples of some of that we've done. Less in schools, but more in our pharmacy customers who have a lot of compliance software. But certainly we can use those same tools to help. But yeah, very customizable. Yet a lot of customers just kind of use the defaults for most of those things, but you can change anything in the system if you have admin privileges.
Okay.
Yeah.
So another question, I think this speaks a little bit to the platform, like you were just talking about. Can the solution help identify trends over time? So, for example, like recurring temperature issues or equipment failures.
Yeah. Yeah, so our basic package that everybody gets has some really cool reports. One of those reports I love, and we built this report years and years ago with a customer, is it's called a threshold achievement report. And what it basically does is it tells you what percentage of time your equipment is in optimal range. And so what it really identifies is the equipment that is kind of oscillating between optimal and caution, but maybe not causing alarms. So that's a great report. You can kind of stack rank and say, hey, these particular units are struggling to maintain optimal conditions. Maybe a preventive maintenance is needed. Maybe that's something that you put out to your commercial refrigeration company. However you want to use that data to your advantage. There are other reports in the system that do similar things. For example, if you have a lot of schools and you're going to leave it to the individual schools to respond to alarms, there's tools that show you how quickly alarms are being responded to, and by school or by group or by location, it's all customizable. But that's a great tool to look at and say, well, these guys are doing a great job, but maybe these guys need to go back and review the alarm handling videos that are in our knowledge base. We have an academy that has videos and things like that users can watch. But again, or maybe it's a management issue, I don't know. But we give a lot of reports that show trends and things that help you manage your business.
Okay. All right. We have about 5 minutes left here. If anybody has any additional questions they want to drop in, or like Joe said, you can always email in. We're happy to talk to you, talk on the phone, just reply via email. But Joe, is there anything else that you want to add?
Not for me. Bailey, I get accused of talking too much. I've tried to really keep it down here today.
I think you did great.
I just, I think it might be worth taking just a minute to tell you guys how Sonicu started. And, I've been with the company since almost the beginning, and we grew out of healthcare. In fact, when you look at the name Sonicu, it's the combination of Sun and ICU. Our technology founder had a son in the NICU, and he developed a wireless monitoring application to help notify and alert staff when noise conditions in the NICU were outside of the guidelines. And turns out noise for neonates causes brain development issues. And so really just we grew out of that initial use case into healthcare and doing, it's like, hey, can you monitor these breast milk refrigerators? Can you monitor these patient refrigerators? Can you do these things? And we're proud of how we started. We certainly have grown quite a bit since the early days, and we're very happy that we're helping our schools. It's something that we're proud of, in addition to the hospitals, that we're helping so many schools today across the country keep food safe and keep their kiddos safe, but also to help the administrative burden that these staffs face day in and day out. That's our goal and our mission. So it's a little bit about how we started and what we're trying to accomplish.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Well, thank you all so much for attending and for your questions. Very much appreciate those. Keep an eye on your inbox for the recording and the additional resources. Those will be coming very soon. And we hope to see you at our future webinars. So thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.